Hello and welcome to the Thought Leader podcast. And today's guest is Tom Johnston, CEO of Synova Talent Solutions. Tom, welcome to the show.
Great to have you, Sam. Great to be here, Sam. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. So let's start off. What brought you into executive search and what keeps you here for so many years?
Well, we have to go back a really long time. Way back in, after I graduated from university, I did a couple of different things and wound up working in a consulting firm. And I really didn't like consulting. I was more hands-on. I wanted to actually get involved in fixing the problem. I just figured out what the company was experiencing. So I came up with this idea about doing an interim, part-time, or fractional solution to go into the client and fix the problem. Well, the consulting firm wasn't interested in it. So I approached a little recruiting firm in New York City. And Sam, this was in 1988 with an idea about an interim or a temporary executive service. No one was doing it at the time. And I said, you're already placing people on a full-time basis. Sometimes the solution isn't a full-time role. And so we said, let's give it a shot. Within a couple of years, we had built a multi-million-dollar business. I then traveled the world teaching high-level search firms, mid-level recruiting companies, temporary staffing companies how to do interim executive placement. I then got recruited to a company in Cleveland, Ohio called Management Recruiters International, MRI, and they were growing, building out a total human capital solutions concept. And they were built on a franchise platform. And they were doing, they said, what else can we get out of the wallet of the person we just made a placement with? What else can we sell them? So we started doing background checks, assessments, temporary staffing, actually started doing video conferencing and relocation services. And interim felt, what he wanted to do. And next thing you know, I'm in Cleveland building a company for him. It was called InterExec. But I kept meeting all these people running their own recruiting businesses. At one point, MRI had 1,100 of them. And they just seem to be making a lot more money than me, having a lot more fun than I am. So 1996, I took the leap and opened up my own search firm through the MRI system. So that's kind of how we landed.
Yeah, amazing story. And what sort of companies are you working with right now?
I would say, I work in, after doing this for so many years, Synova, we pretty much work all industries, all functions. Personally, I do a lot of work in professional services. But what I've really built my career on is helping search and recruiting companies find talent, bringing partners to executive search firms, leadership, even associates and researchers. We help them build out teams. And so a lot of what I work in is in the search industry.
Yeah, makes sense. And are you seeing more demand from startups or more established corporates?
Well, I think one thing that I've learned over all these years is recruitment and staffing tend to be a leading indicator of economic growth. When the search firms need to add talent, when the temp staffing companies need to add talent, that typically happens when they're starting to get demand from their clients. Right now, I believe that we are not going to be going into a recession. I think we're going to start continuing to grow. Regardless of what's going on around the world economically, there's still opportunities. Companies are still growing. They're still hiring. They may be letting certain people go, but they're adding in they're bringing on other people. And so I would say right now, all search firms are starting to see an increase in business, and they're starting to recruit everything from business development partners, originators, all the way down to execution people. And I think I'm seeing activity from the big firms as well as even the smaller boutiques and the startups. So I think everywhere the recruiting industry still needs people. AI is not going to replace the recruiter. It'll make us a little quicker, a little more efficient, but it's not going to take us out of the mix. And I think more and more people are realizing that you need to have the human hand in the middle of the process. So demand is up everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think you mentioned you've mentored 3,000 plus recruiters and you've worked with search firms across the globe. What separates good recruiters from truly great ones?
I'll give you my secret. I don't know if I should be telling you this, but to me, and then again, part of my career after I was with that MRI, we actually franchised our company, a company called SearchPath International. Over the years, we sold 179 franchises. And everybody always asks me, what makes a great recruiter? To me, it's when somebody gets into this business with the true passion to help companies find talent to grow, help people identify new opportunities that can change their lives. They're going to build relationships. they're going to get repeat business, and they're going to grow and build their recruiting business. I can't tell you how many times I've met people that get into this business and they do it just for the money. There's a lot of money in executive search and recruitment. You can make a lot of money, but you'll never build relationships. So the difference between a great recruiter and a really, average or below average, it's about how you approach the business. If you do it because you genuinely want to help companies grow and people come up with new opportunities, the money's going to come and you're going to build a very successful search business. Get in it for the money. The candidate and the client, they're going to figure it out pretty quick that all you want is the fee, and they'll never take your call again. They may take the job. You might get the placement, but you're never going to get repeat business. You're going to get more business. I had a gentleman that I knew many years ago who made a business of just, being very, very aggressive. He would literally send out candidates with the fee agreement to job postings on the job boards. And whenever they mistakenly would hire one of the candidates, he then chase them down for an invoice. When the going got tough in one of the downturns, he had no repeat business because nobody even wanted to work with him in the first place. But those that build deep relationships, they come through any up and down segments in the business. They continue to work with the clients they have good relationships with.
So I think it's even more important these days, isn't it? That building that relationship, having that cultural fit, all that is just so important these days. That aggressive approach is just it doesn't work, does it?
No, and the hardest thing you can do, especially when you're starting out, and I remember when I had to do this, is when you really could use that fee, but to tell a candidate, look, this isn't the right thing. I can feel this isn't right for you, your family. I think we ought to turn this thing down. We'll keep looking for other opportunities for you. When there's a party that says, boy, I really wish they would say yes. But the key to do that is always make sure you have 10 things in the hopper. If you don't have 10 things on your hot sheet, 8 of them aren't going to come through, but 2 do. And I think that's the best way to build the business is you've got to be out there, but more importantly, you got to be more concerned about the candidate and the client versus your own personal goals. And I think that's the big thing, and that'll never change.
Absolutely. And how common is headhunting now, especially in executive and board level?
Well, I mean, again, there, when you think about what's going on in the market today, average person staying in a role 3 to 4 years, and whether it's low level, 3 4 entry level positions all the way up onto the board, even the average CEO is only in a role for 3 to 4 years. Constant change. So reality, the vast majority of the roles are filled through internal referrals. I've created a whole program, that's that company My Hunt Path, where I'm teaching candidates how to build those networks and get those internal referrals. But reality, if those aren't going to generate the candidate that you need, putting things up on the job board, that's been a broken system from the very beginning. I was in the room when Andy McKelvey told 700 owners of recruiting firms that the monster board is going to put us all out of business. He was wrong. And so I think when a client or a company has a specific need, and they need not just a body or a person, they need somebody with specific skills, background, experience. The only way they're going to get them is to hire an executive recruiter or a headhunter who makes their living going out into the market, identifying the passive candidates with the experience and background that they're looking for, and we recruit them. We don't post, we don't hope that somebody's going to follow up because that whole system is broken. I think the demand for executive search, headhunting is going to continue to escalate, but it's going to be more refined. All this technology is really kind of just getting in the way. And I think more and more companies are realizing that it's need the recruiter there to help facilitate the process and make it happen.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I see a stat the other day. I think it said, I think it was 70% of executive hiring decisions now factor in emotional intelligence and adaptability over technical skills. Are you seeing that trend too?
Absolutely. And it's always been that way. Believe it or not, when, a lot of times people are trying to say that when two people get together, that cultural fit, it still happens as an interpersonal connection. People hire people that they feel good about, that they're comfortable with, that they believe they can work well with on both sides. And so, yes, that's always been tremendously important. We can put labels and all those things on it, but at the end of the day, companies are going to hire people that fit their culture and company, and great candidates are only going to go to companies where they believe that they can fit into corporate culture, that they can have the career path they're looking for, that they can have a voice and feel valued. And really embrace the mission of the company they're going to work for, or they're going to say no. They're going to keep looking for other things, which is kind of, basically why we need to be in the middle of this whole thing.
Absolutely. And yeah, I want to touch on kind of candidates now. So if a seasoned candidate is struggling to land interviews, what's usually holding them back? Is it like a resume, network, or something else?
Well, again, it's kind of difficult, and I'll tell you why. I actually had somebody that I knew who's doing a search for CEO internally for a nonprofit. She sits on the board, and she said, "Tom, what wound up happening? I put a posting up. I got 200 responses. And Sam, after she read 10 cover letters and resumes, she said, Tom, they're all exactly the same. Every candidate out there has figured out take your resume, the position description, throw it into chat, and it's going to tell you why you're the best candidate. Send it to the client. That doesn't work. I had another candidate who had been looking for a very senior level person in cybersecurity, had been looking for a role for over a year and a half. She hired one of these, coaching companies that said they're going to rewrite her resume for her. And when she handed it to me and tried to explain that she hadn't gotten an interview or even a call in a year, no one responds. What I looked at it, and to be honest, 30 years, and what they had done is put every keyword they could think of into the resume, to the point where I couldn't even understand or begin to tell you what she did, what she accomplished, because it was so complicated, which is why people are just pushing it away. What I've actually built an entire process and program to teach people how to think and act like an executive recruiter. What people need to do is first identify the companies that they can bring value to, not the companies that are hiring. The role they're looking for isn't open yet. They've got to be the one that gets into that internal referral network, so that when the active role comes in where 80% of the jobs are filled, that they're actually getting the phone call. So I'm teaching them how to identify the companies they believe they can bring value to and want to work with, how to create relationships with people in those companies, not asking them for a job, but asking for their advice, their guidance, a relationship, always asking how you can help them and get into their network, follow up with them occasionally so that when the opening does come up, they get the call. It's got to be more of a proactive approach. Sitting back and throwing resumes into job postings, I mean, from the very beginning, Sam, that's been broken. It's a public site, meaning anybody who has their information up on the internet, they're either unemployed, about to be unemployed, or they don't care. Nobody should ever know you're looking for a new job until you have it locked in, signed. That's when people should find out you're moving, not when you put your resume up on LinkedIn. Everybody's going to know you're looking for a job. The other thing that's a problem is from the very beginning, all of the technology that's been happening since then has been to eliminate candidates, not be, it's exclusive, not inclusive. So they're trying to find ways to take those 200 resumes and eliminate everyone down to 5. But that means it's eliminating some highly qualified candidates that just hasn't figured out a way to get through to the screener or through the AI screens that they're putting in. The other thing that it's done, it's created a whole class of workers that, believe it or not, most of us don't want. When they put it up in the beginning and made it easy for people to apply for jobs, and when you get a great job, they encourage you to keep your resume up. And a lot of people do. Just kind of, think something else comes up. And as a recruiter, when a candidate takes that first job, it's fine. But when they take the second one in 18 months, now that raises eyebrows. When they take the third job in under 5 years, that becomes the candidate our clients don't want. That's the candidate they know if they bring them in, invest in them, train them, start to depend on them, the minute somebody comes and offers them something a little bit better, they're going to leave. So it's created a whole class of job hoppers that nobody really wants. And so I think there's a lot of frustration in the market. We're really trying to help people figure out how to get in front of it. But the biggest problem is the way people are looking for work today, thinking that they need to go out and just, chase things down on the internet. That's not going to work, and it never really has.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned LinkedIn as well. You see that being equally as important as a CV now.
LinkedIn is a tool. It's a great research tool. It's a way to connect. What it really has done for everyone is eliminate the cold call. Back in the day when I was starting recruiting, we used phone books. We just would call numbers. The internet didn't exist. I hate to admit that. I'm that old. But today, before you pick up the phone, you can know what they look like, where they went to school, where they work. It's very, very easy to start a conversation when you know a little bit about the person you're about to talk to. But it's a great tool. It's a good networking opportunity. But I think we got to be a bit careful because it has become a job board. And it is a public site. And what a lot of people don't realize is if you have LinkedIn through your company, they have access to all your connections, all the things and activity that you're doing. They see who you're connecting with and what you're doing. So you've got to be very, very careful. It's simply a tool, but it's a good research tool and it's part of the process and systems that you use to manage your career and your network.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you noticed any major shifts in how executive level talent is thinking about career moves over the past 12 to 18 months?
Well, I will tell you what I'm starting to see. And it's taken 30 years for the market to realize this, but I think today, plenty of opportunity in executive search, but more and more companies are realizing that the interim and fractional solution really does make a lot of sense. It's the fastest growing segment in executive search today. And I think as companies want either short term project based people for an interim or temporary role, those things are coming in when they need a project done, when they have a sudden opening that they're not prepared for, maybe when there's an illness. I had a gentleman that had a CFO who had a heart attack. My client called and said, "Hey, we're not going to replace him. We just need somebody to cover until he comes back." So there's a lot more need there and a big, big increase in the use of fractional. Small, medium-sized companies are coming to the realization that maybe they don't need a full-time chief legal officer or a full-time CFO, but maybe somebody, you know, 5 days a month or 10 days a month to help them where they can control their costs, remain and keep the flexibility, but yet get the executive level talent that they need. And as executives get towards kind of the end of their career, I call them the polyvalent professionals. These are very seasoned executives with 25, 30 years experience, for whatever reason, find themselves looking for a new role. They're actively looking for a new leadership role, but they're being highly selective over which role that they would take. If it doesn't meet all their criteria and they get pretty specific, they're holding a pretty high bar, they're not going to take it. So in the meantime, they're going to do some consulting. They're going to do some interim and fractional. They're also going to be doing some maybe teaching, investing, some philanthropic work. So I think there's going to be a large pool of talent that's going to be available to help small, medium, and emerging companies continue to grow with a little bit of a different model, basically a staffing interim fractional model.
Interesting. Really interesting. And if you could rebuild the hiring process from scratch today, what would you do differently?
Could redo the hiring. Well, I think, the process that I use today, Sam, it's the same one I've been using for 30 years. The process starts with a good intake. The client has to give you clear understanding and give you the time to tell you exactly what they're looking for. The only thing worse than writing a resume is writing a job posting. A lot of it is cut and paste. AI is way involved in that, and that's fine. But we need to take the time for the client to really tell you exactly what they're looking for. We then go out and do a really good marketing document. When you go into the market to a passive candidate, you better be able to answer the why. Why am I going to take a look at this opportunity? You've got to get the motivation that's going to get people to raise their hand and say, want to look. So we really have to work with our clients to help them with that. And then we do source environment research. Where are the right people sitting that would be right for this role? And I think from the process point of view, we're still hardcore on the phone. Call them first, connect with them. If you can't get to them, you can send them an email or a link or a text message, but we always try to do the voice first. Believe it or not, that's kind of different. And we're not AI, we're not bots. We're reaching out as a person to build a relationship. But I think from the process point of view, yeah, I think we just kind of stick to the old school that works the best, introduce the best candidates and let the clients make them through their process. And ultimately, the only thing I wish we could do is maybe move it a bit quicker. When, time kills all deals, the longer a candidate's sitting out in the market, the less likely you're going to be able to close them. But, overall, the process that I've started using 96 and today, and I've worked in my own firm, we franchise it. Most recently, I was at ZRG Partners, seventh largest search firm in the world. The process is exactly the same.
Interesting. And are you using much AI in your work at Synova? And
Yeah,
how do you see AI kind of shaping the future of recruitment?
Well, I think AI the way we're positioning Synova is we're an AI enabled search firm. We use the tool. It's a great tool. It helps us get our ideas a little bit clearer. It can help us in our research a little bit, help us with some of our writing and communications. It can automate some of the manual processes. Those are all great. I like to tell everybody, way back one of my first jobs out of university was with UPS. And if it wasn't for Microsoft and spell check and Word, I'd probably still be driving a truck. It makes us a little bit smarter, a little bit more efficient, but it's a tool and it'll only ever be a tool. And I think as long as you position the human in the middle of the process, I think it's just going to help us be a little bit more efficient, make us sound a little bit smarter, a little bit more productive, but it's not going to change what we do. Recruiters will always be in the middle of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a personable industry, recruitment, isn't it? So yeah, AI is never going to replace that. That's for sure.
Exactly. On both sides.
Yeah, exactly. Tom, thank you so much for the conversation today. It's been great. For anyone listening, how can they find out more about your company and about yourself?
Okay, real quick, we've got a couple things. If you go to synovasearch.com, you'll be able to reach and find out a little bit more about what we're doing. If you're looking for some career assistance, we've got a whole program out there. It's at myhuntpath.com. And if you really want to make me feel good and make my weekend, go buy my book. The name of the book is Where's Your Buffalo? It's the Executive Recruiter's Guide to Career Management. And if you go to tkjohnston.com or go to Amazon and type in Where's Your Buffalo, they have it out on, there's hardcover, audio, and ebook. And it's a complete guide on how to build, manage, and execute a lifetime career plan. Everything I've learned over 35 years is in those videos and are in the book. So, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm one of those crazy people that have all my contact information there. Always reach out and connect with me. I'll connect with you. Follow me. I'm always putting up posts and things that I hopefully could be helpful. I'll do whatever I can to help.
Amazing. Thanks so much. This has been the
All right.
Fractional Recruiter podcast, and we'll see you again.